Hello everyone, hope you are always well. Today, we have 3 stories, real stories, but with tragic endings that will make you leave this video saying, "Oh God, grant us a good end." If there's any suitable title for these stories, it's various reasons, one end, death. So, without further ado, let's start our stories. On August 6, 2018, there was a grocery store in Lancaster, California, a city about an hour north of Los Angeles. The store's manager received numerous complaints from customers and employees about a foul smell coming from the main entrance. The manager, concerned, went to investigate the source of the smell. When he reached the main entrance, near the cashier area at the front, he couldn't stand the stench. Initially, the manager thought that someone might have left some food, like meat or fish, which had gone bad. However, as he approached the entrance, the smell was much worse outside than inside. He continued to search for the source of the smell and discovered that one of the columns near the entrance was leaking some kind of liquid. He thought it might be a sewage pipe leak causing the horrible smell, so he called a plumber. Within 2 hours, the plumber arrived and inspected the leaking column. The plumber informed the manager that there was no way a sewage pipe would be inside a column, it would be external. The column was made of decorative cement and hollow inside. The manager and the plumber were puzzled and didn't know what to do next. They needed to find the source of the leak because the smell was unbearable. The column was surrounded by bricks at the bottom, and the leak was coming through the gaps. The plumber used a tool to remove a brick to inspect the source of the leak. When they removed the brick, they saw an opening showing the hollow inside of the column. As they peered inside, they were horrified by what they found. Both men recoiled and immediately called the police. 5 days earlier, Lancaster police had arrested a 35-year-old man named Ray Rivera, who was driving a suspected stolen car. The car was stopped by the police due to a suspicion that it was stolen. Rivera got out of the car and fled the scene, entering the grocery store and running up to the second floor, which was reserved for employees. The police searched the store but couldn't find Rivera. They assumed he had either left the store or was hiding somewhere else. They decided to monitor the store for a while, but hours passed with no sign of Rivera. A warrant was issued for his arrest, and the police left the scene. Unbeknownst to the police, Rivera had been hiding on the second floor. Realizing that it wasn't a safe hiding spot, he decided to find a better place. He managed to get to the roof of the building. While on the roof, he discovered a small door that led into the decorative structure at the front of the store. He thought it might be a good hiding spot. The room inside the door was a maintenance room with electrical cables running through it. Rivera saw openings leading into the columns that formed the store's facade. Thinking it was the perfect hiding place, he squeezed himself into one of the openings. The opening was 43 centimeters wide, and Rivera's broad shoulders got stuck. To solve this, he raised one arm up and let the other hang down, allowing him to lower himself further into the column. However, Rivera soon realized he had made a grave mistake. Once inside, he couldn't pull himself up and out of the narrow space. As he struggled, he kept slipping further down until he reached the bottom of the column. Trapped inside, he could barely breathe due to the tight space compressing his chest, and no one could hear his screams for help. To make matters worse, it was August, and the city was experiencing a severe heat wave, turning the column into a scorching oven. Rivera remained trapped in this horrific situation for 5 days until the plumber and the store manager discovered his decomposing body. The dark brown liquid with the foul smell leaking from the column was purge fluid, a substance released from a decomposing body due to gas pressure. In January 1997, Dr. Karen Wetterhahn, a highly accomplished chemist and professor at an Ivy League university, began experiencing a peculiar tingling sensation in her lower extremities. Initially, she dismissed the discomfort, assuming it was a minor issue that would resolve on its own. However, the symptoms soon escalated. Karen started having balance problems, often stumbling or having to lean against walls for support while walking through the university corridors. Her condition deteriorated further, her speech became slurred and incoherent, and she developed persistent ringing in her ears. Her vision also worsened dramatically, as if looking through a toilet paper roll. Concerned, her husband took her to the hospital where she underwent a series of tests, including spinal and brain examinations. Initially, the doctors were baffled by her condition. One day, a doctor entered the room, holding a stack of test results, and asked Karen's husband if she had any enemies. It turned out that Karen had been suffering from severe mercury poisoning. Mercury, a highly toxic metal in any form, was found in her body at levels 80 times higher than the toxic threshold. The doctors suspected foul play, but both Karen and her husband insisted she had no enemies. Given her background in chemistry, Karen was asked if she had been exposed to mercury at work. She confirmed that over the past 6 months, she had been conducting research on the effects of certain metals on human health, including mercury, as part of a $7 million research project. She assured the doctors that she had always handled the materials with extreme caution, wearing protective gloves and using all necessary safety equipment. In the laboratory, Karen worked with mercury compounds inside a fume hood, a safety device designed to prevent the inhalation of hazardous fumes. The fume hood had an exhaust system that sucked out any vapors, ensuring that she was not exposed to harmful substances. The puzzled doctor then asked how the mercury could have entered her system. Karen remembered an incident from 5 months earlier. While working in the lab, 2 drops of dimethylmercury had accidentally spilled on her left hand near her thumb. Although she was wearing latex gloves, she wiped off the mercury with a tissue and disposed of both the tissue and gloves in a hazardous waste container. She then washed and disinfected her hands before continuing her experiment. The problem was that Karen was not dealing with ordinary metallic mercury, the kind found in thermometers or old blood pressure devices. She was working with dimethylmercury, a highly toxic and volatile compound. Despite her precautions, the substance had permeated the latex gloves and been absorbed through her skin. When the doctors tested the same type of gloves Karen had used, they found that dimethylmercury could indeed penetrate the latex material, explaining how the toxin had entered her system. However, another mystery remained: why had the symptoms appeared so late? Mercury poisoning symptoms typically emerge quickly after exposure. Mercury, particularly in its dimethyl form, is lipophilic, meaning it binds with and is stored in fatty tissues. Once in the body, it takes a long time to be excreted, as it accumulates in organs rich in fat. In Karen's case, by the time she was hospitalized, the mercury had already reached her brain, which is composed of about 60% fat. The toxin had begun to destroy her central nervous system. After 3 weeks in the hospital, Karen slipped into a coma. Despite the doctor's efforts, her condition continued to worsen. One day, a friend visiting Karen noticed a tear rolling down her cheek and asked the doctor if she was in pain. The doctor explained that Karen's brain had reached a stage where she could no longer feel pain. She remained in a coma until her death on June 8, 1997, about 10 months after those 2 small drops of dimethylmercury fell on her glove. On July 30, 2013, a 56-year-old man named Roger Merrow left his apartment with a garbage bag. He walked down the hallway to the garbage chute, opened the door, threw in the bag, and returned to his apartment. Once back inside, he reached into his pocket to check his phone but couldn't find it. He checked his other pocket and searched all his pockets again but still couldn't find his phone. He then searched his entire apartment, in the kitchen, living room, bathroom, under the couch, and bed, but found no trace of his phone. Thinking he might have dropped it in the hallway, he went back out and retraced his steps to the garbage chute but still didn't find it. He stood by the garbage chute, wondering if he had accidentally thrown his phone away with the trash. As he pondered, one of his neighbors came out of their apartment and saw him standing there, puzzled. The neighbor asked what was wrong, and Roger explained the situation. The neighbor suggested he go downstairs and ask the security guard for the key to the garbage room so he could check if his phone had ended up there. Roger thanked his neighbor, took the elevator down, and approached the security guard. The guard was busy with something important and Roger knocked on the door to get his attention. He explained his situation and asked the guard to unlock the garbage room. Normally, residents were not allowed to enter the garbage room, only the sanitation workers who collected the trash could access it, and the guard would supervise them. However, the guard was waiting for an important phone call and couldn't leave his post. Instead of telling Roger to come back later, he handed him the key, asking him to return it once he found his phone. Roger thanked the guard, took the key, and headed to the garbage room. Hours later, Roger's wife returned home from work. She didn't find him in their apartment, and when she called his phone, there was no answer. She waited for a few hours, hoping he had just gone out for a bit, but he still didn't return. Worried, she called everyone who knew Roger, but no one had seen or heard from him. Finally, she called the police and reported him missing. The police arrived and began asking neighbors if they had seen Roger. One neighbor mentioned seeing him last by the garbage chute, trying to figure out if he had accidentally thrown away his phone. The police went down to the garbage room and found the door open. Inside, there was a large garbage compactor, with a chute above it where residents threw their trash. The compactor had a funnel-shaped opening right under the chute, and a small gap between the chute and the compactor. The police noticed a ladder placed next to the compactor as if someone had climbed up to look inside. One officer climbed the ladder and peered into the funnel, discovering Roger's body inside the compactor. After a thorough investigation, the police pieced together what had happened. After receiving the key, Roger had entered the garbage room and saw the compactor. Thinking his phone might be visible in the funnel, he climbed the ladder to look inside. At this moment, one of two things might have occurred: either someone threw a garbage bag down the chute, hitting Roger and causing him to fall into the compactor, or he lost his balance and fell in by himself. Regardless of how he fell, the compactor's sensors detected a large object, triggering the hydraulic press. These compactors are designed to compress garbage to maximize space, similar to car crushers. As soon as Roger fell in, the sensors activated the press, which crushed him along with the trash. The press then retracted, and with each new bag of garbage, it activated again, compressing the old and new trash together. Roger was crushed repeatedly until he succumbed to his injuries. Even if Roger initially survived the fall, he wouldn't have been able to escape. The compactor had no internal ladders, emergency exits, or emergency stop buttons. He was trapped, and his only view would have been the approaching press until it finally crushed him. The horrific incident resulted in Roger's wife filing lawsuits against the security company and the property management company. However, the outcomes of these lawsuits remain unknown to this day. And that concludes our stories for today. If you enjoyed these stories, please like and share this video on all your social media accounts. Until next time, take care and stay safe.